Greetings from the journalism program at the Communication and Media Studies Department, M.O.P. Vaishnav College for Women. Today we are going to look at some guidelines for reporting on elections. As we all know, elections are a huge part, essential part of democracy, and reporters have a huge role to play in conveying the correct information and helping people choose their leaders. So elections always inflame passions, as you can see here, and 2024 was a huge year of elections. So here you can see Rishi Sunak facing off against Keir Starmer. That was the UK elections. Over there, of course, you can see Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Again, the US elections, November 2024. Some 70 countries went to the polls in 2024. There was Belgium, there was the European Parliament, there was Taiwan. The list is endless, and always passions are running very high, but nothing can meet the Mela, that is the Indian elections, as you can see here. And at this time when everybody is so energized and parties are facing off against each other, party workers are on the roads, someone has to keep a cool head, right? Someone has to stay calm and provide the facts to the people. And yes, that would be the media. But does media always do its role? Does media always keep its head, stay calm, and provide the right facts to the people and do its role throughout the process of the elections? We have seen that is not always the case. So it's best to learn good media behavior during elections. So today we are going to look at very basically some do's and don'ts. This is as prescribed by the Press Council of India as well as some international guidelines. Of course, in the process we will also be looking at the roles that the information that media can provide to the people and how the media, reporters, news organizations can tell people where their local polling booth is, what time the booth opens, who their local candidates are, and so on. But these are basically good reporting, journalistic behavior during elections. We will be looking basically at before, during, and after the polls. So first of all, just to understand why we are here, why cover the elections? First of all, of course, because journalism is an essential public service. We are doing this because we are an essential part of democracy. We help people exercise their right to choose their leaders in a democratic fashion, and that's why we are here. But secondly, of course, no news organization should miss out on the chance to cover the elections because readership, TRPs, and eyeballs in the case of digital media. Everybody is covering this, and we want to do it better, we want to do it right, and that's why we are doing this. As a rule, of course, covering elections is no different from any other journalistic job, right? We have to follow our basic principles. We have to be accurate at all times. We need to provide the correct candidate names. Often, candidate names match one another, and they differ only by the party to which they belong, or the constituency from which they are running, or it could simply be the initial that changes. So be very clear on which candidate you are referring to. This can change the complete outcome of the elections. Precise audience numbers. You don't want to make an election meeting look bigger than it really was. That is again wrong reporting. It gives people the wrong idea. Exact quotes. What did they say? Want to get it right, and you want attribution. You want to know exactly who said what you are reporting. Provide context. Sometimes a candidate says something, you want to provide the exact context to the viewer, reader, because they won't know the history based on which this candidate made that comment. So all these are the jobs of the reporter. Be impartial. One-sided reporting can be very harmful in the election context, but it is not possible for one reporter to be everywhere, cover every campaign. So it often becomes the job of the editor sitting back at the office to make sure that if they carry a story from one reporter covering one campaign, they also carry a story by another reporter. If the reporter reporter 1 themselves are not able to get quotes from every party regarding a particular context, then it becomes the job of the editor to make sure that the news organization covers every angle. And the editor must separate fact from comment, because a news publication gives space for both. The facts are brought in by the reporter, the commentary is provided on the editorial page. So it becomes the job of the editor to make sure that people understand that comment or opinion is in fact opinion, it is not a reported piece. Be responsible. In the rush to publish, very often news organizations end up quoting some other news organization when they report a particular news. This is not plagiarism, they in fact do attribute this reporting or this information to another news organization. They say, according to this organization B, this is what is happening on the field. This is not wrong, but take your time to verify, otherwise you might run the risk of simply repeating some wrong information. So even if you don't have, an organization does not have a reporter on the field, it's a good idea to get information from some other news organization, but do take the time to verify it before. Now we come to the actual essential guidelines, and as I said, many of these are drawn from guidelines provided by the Press Council of India, and that's what I've indicated there with PCI. So first, the guidelines for before the elections actually take place when you're covering the campaign. While reporting on an actual campaign, the newspaper may not leave out any important point said by the candidate. The newspaper or the TV channel or the YouTube channel or the digital publication may take cover under the fact that, yes, I did send out a reporter to cover this particular candidate, so I've done my job. But is the reporting complete? Are you carrying an important platform or a position that the candidate thinks is really important? If you choose to edit it out, that is again not accurate reporting. So a reporter has to be cautious about that. Election campaign along communal or caste lines is not allowed by the Election Commission of India. So if that is happening, how does a reporter cover it? Yes, you do have to let the public know that this particular candidate is trying to inflame communal feeling, but you should not convey it in such a manner that communal feeling is inflamed in the public. You do not want to rouse emotions in the public so that there may be violence. So a reporter has to convey this information to the public, but do it in such a way and use such language that emotional feelings are not aroused. And the press should refrain from publishing false or critical statements on personal character, because that has no relevance, right? The public may come to know one way or the other, but it is not the job of the press to cover the personal character or the personal conduct of a particular candidate. The press obviously shall not accept any inducement, which can be financial or any other kind of inducement from a particular candidate or party. This is equivalent to a bribe. You cannot accept such inducements in order to cover a party or candidate. The press shall not indulge in canvassing. It is not your job because of an ideological position or any other feeling to provide space whereby you are elevating a certain party or a candidate. The press shall not publish any advertisement that the ruling party or the government is publishing in your paper or in your TV channel at the cost of the public, that is with taxpayer money. They can publish at the cost of the party, that's completely allowed, but not at the cost of the taxpayer, just because they happen to be the ruling party or government. So continuing with some more guidelines for the earlier part of the election before actual election day. Regarding pre-election surveys, you know, surveys are a very important part of a journalistic organization's role when it comes to elections. They want to let people know what are others thinking, what is the general mood in the country, and that's why they carry out surveys. So what does the Press Council of India say about surveys? They say news organizations should always include this set of information when they publish surveys. So what do they say? You have to let people know where, in which other organization, news organization has this survey been published, right? If you did not conduct this survey, then who did? Secondly, who commissioned this survey? And thereby you are conveying to readers, to viewers, that the people who commissioned this survey were not partisan in nature, they were working for the interest of the public. And even if they were partisan in nature, you convey that information to the public, and that is the reader or the viewer, and let them make up their mind about the nature of the survey. And thirdly, you have to convey the size of the sample, how many people were surveyed and where was the survey carried out. The nature of selection, how were the samples selected? Was it complete random sampling? How did this happen? And the possible margin of error. All this information has to be conveyed to the public when you publish surveys, pre-election surveys. And about the silence period. So the silence period is a period of 48 hours ending with the closing of the polling booth. And for these 48 hours, candidates, parties are not allowed to carry out campaigns, they are not allowed to publish advertisements either on print or in broadcast. So basically this is a period when everything has to go silent so that the public can make up their mind and then go cast their vote in an informed manner. So during this period, news organizations cannot cover campaigns because campaigns should not be happening. They can discuss the elections, they can provide essential information to readers, viewers, but they cannot cover campaigns. Alright, coming to the during part of the election. So on election day, what should news organizations do? What should your behavior be? You should be aware, of course, for media coverage you have to obtain an authority letter provided by the Election Commission of India, and this has to be obtained based on a sponsor, which could be your employer. So established media organizations can sponsor your application to the Election Commission of India for an authority letter which will enable you to cover elections on election day, will allow you entry into the polling booth where you can conduct interviews, you can take photographs, etc. But all of this has to be done without disrupting the process of the elections. And exit polls. So what are exit polls? Exit polls are those snap opinions that are collected outside the polling station after people cast their votes. And why do news organizations do this? They want to let people know exactly how people have voted, not only what they intended to vote like, which you would do before the election, but also once having cast the vote, what have people actually done. But the Press Council of India says these exit poll results must not be published during the course of the day if it's only a single day election, and should be completely withheld throughout the period of the elections if it is a multi-phase election. So for example, the Indian Lok Sabha polls in 2024 were conducted in 7 phases, staggered across 2 months. So exit polls were not permitted to be published or broadcast until the end of the entire lot of phases. Only at the end of the 7th phase could news organizations actually come out and tell people how exactly people voted according to exit polls. So now we come to the after part, or counting day. Now depending on a country's infrastructure, the counting may just take several hours or it may take several days, and this is an extremely sensitive time. As you may remember from recent news events in some countries where the election seemed to be going against a particular party or candidate, immediately tensions run high, passions are inflamed, and there is a possibility of violence. So this is a time when media organizations have to observe extreme sensitivity, and therefore the Election Commission of India tries really hard to provide the results as quickly as possible, but the press, the media have to cooperate. Media outlets often compete with one another to be the first to publish predictions. So how do they do predictions? Because as counting is going on, the press office of the Election Commission of India provide periodic numbers. So based on these numbers, the analysts at the newsroom will continue to provide predictions. And sometimes we know that predictions, can go this way or that way, but providing predictions is a good idea. Providing periodic numbers is a good idea because it helps people, the public, develop trust in the process. So you can see that in the beginning, the exit polls say one thing, but the end result is something else altogether, then the public gets suspicious, and there is thought that there may be result tampering and so on. So it's a good idea to provide periodic predictions and periodic numbers. It's imperative for exit polls to be conducted scientifically and to be analyzed scientifically and for the proper results to be given out. Otherwise, as I just mentioned, it can lead to people thinking that something really bad is going on, that someone is tampering with the results and so on. So such suspicions can arise, even though there have been recent cases when exit polls have gone wrong. We have seen this in the recent past. Still, the media must do its best to carry out exit polls in a scientific way. Inconsistencies do exist. Even if you get it wrong, it's important for media to try and analyze and see where they went wrong so that they can get it right the next time. So that's the job of journalistic organizations. Post-election, so that's not the end of it. Media organizations carry out reporting before, during and after, but even after counting is done, there's still work to be done. So they have to be there when there are disputes about election results. What is the dispute resolution mechanism? Are there by-polls? Cover those by-polls. All of that falls to the media. Then you want to attend or cover the inauguration of those who have been newly elected. You want to be there for the selection of a new government, convey that to the people. And are these new leaders implementing their campaign promises? You were there, you conveyed it to the public when they were making these grand promises on the basis of which they were elected. But now that they are in power, are they actually implementing? Are they making good on those campaign promises? You have to be there to convey this information also to the public, right? I hope that gave you a snapshot of what is expected of journalists in covering elections. This was only a tiny fraction of the enormity of this task, but I hope this gave you enough to go on to do your own exploration. Thank you.